It's Christmas Day. I'm standing in my own living room, watching my husband hug his ex-girlfriend. The same ex-girlfriend my mother-in-law invited to our family Christmas. And in that one moment, I knew my marriage might not make it. But more than that, I knew my relationship with her was completely, irrevocably over. You're probably wondering how I ended up there. How a day that's supposed to be about family and joy turned into the opening scene of a domestic war. Well, it wasn't just one thing. It never is it? It was 1,000 tiny cuts. A slow, steady campaign of disrespect that finally blew up in one single, unforgivable act. Let's go back to the beginning. When I first met my mother-in-law, Brenda, I thought she was fine. A bit particular, maybe. A little old-fashioned. But she raised the man I loved, so I gave her every benefit of the doubt. I told myself her little digs and offhand comments were just her way. Some kind of generational quirk I just had to get used to. The first time I cooked a big family dinner, I spent 2 days on it. As she took her first bite of the roast chicken I'd brined for 24 hours, she gave a faint smile and said, "This is nice, dear. It's almost as moist as the one Sarah used to make." Sarah, my husband Mark's ex. They dated for 5 years, a serious, live-in thing that ended a couple of years before Mark and I even met. Mark always said the breakup was mutual, but to hear Brenda tell it, it was the tragedy of the century. Sarah was the ghost that haunted our house, the phantom limb of the family that Brenda refused to let go of. And the Sarah comparisons just kept coming. When I got a promotion, Brenda said, "Oh, that's wonderful." Sarah was always so career-focused too. A little too much. Sometimes. I suppose. It was her signature move, the backhanded compliment. She praised my decorating, then mentioned that Sarah had the exact same taste but found a much better deal on a similar couch. Mark would just shrug. "That's just Mom." He'd say, a phrase I grew to absolutely hate. "She doesn't mean anything by it." Her and Sarah were close. I really did try to be the bigger person. I figured if I was just kind enough, patient enough, eventually Brenda would see me, not as Sarah's replacement, but as her son's wife, as the mother of her grandkids. But I was learning a tough lesson. You can't earn the respect of someone who has already decided you don't deserve it. The tiny cuts never stopped. She'd rearrange my kitchen when she visited, telling me it was a more logical setup. She bought our daughter a frilly dress for her first birthday that was 3 sizes too big, signed that she just couldn't remember the right size, even though I'd sent her a list. Each incident on its own was so small, so petty, that complaining about it would make me sound unhinged. But all together, they left me feeling constantly on edge, always waiting for the next subtle jab, the next reminder that in her eyes, I'd never quite measure up. This year was supposed to be different. It was our first Christmas in our new house, our first with our 6-month-old son, Jacob. Our daughter, Lily, was 4 and just buzzing with Christmas magic. I wanted it to be perfect. We decided to host because we wanted to start our own traditions in our own space. When I told Brenda our plan, she immediately said, "Oh, that's so much for you to take on, dear, with the new baby and everything. Why don't I come over and help you manage?" I couldn't say no without looking ungrateful, but a chill ran down my spine. Brenda's help is really just a code word for control. Sure enough, she started her campaign. First, the phone calls with suggestions. "You know, I was thinking, the turkey is always so dry in the oven. Maybe we should fry it this year," she'd say, ignoring that my turkey was famous for not being dry. "Are you sure about putting the tree there? The morning sun might fade the ornaments." Sarah always put hers in the foyer, and then it started. I was chatting with a friend of Sarah's the other day. She began out of nowhere. She said Sarah is all alone this Christmas. Her mom's in Florida. It's just so sad, thinking of her all by herself. A huge warning bell went off in my head. "That is sad," I said, keeping my voice flat. "I'm sure she'll find friends to spend it with." "Well, you'd think so. But she's just so sweet. She never wants to impose," Brenda sighed. I let it go. What else could I do? Start a fight over a suspicion? I was determined to have a peaceful Christmas. Mark, of course, was completely oblivious. "Mom's just being dramatic." "Don't worry about it," he said, waving off my concerns. He actually accused me of being paranoid. That was the worst part, being gaslit into thinking the giant red flags I was seeing were all in my head. The proof came 3 days before Christmas. I'm in a big family group chat on my husband's side. It's mostly for birthdays and kid pictures. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Mark's cousin, Chloe. It said, "So excited for Christmas at your new place. Brenda said she even managed to get Sarah to come. It'll be so fun to catch up." I just stared at the screen. The word swam. My heart started pounding against my ribs. I read it again. Brenda said she even managed to get Sarah to come. My hands were shaking. I walked into the living room where Mark was building a block tower with Lily. I just held out the phone. My voice was dangerously quiet. What is this? He looked at the phone, and I saw it, a flash of guilt, quickly replaced by that look of weary resignation I knew so well. Look, he started. Let's not make a big deal out of this. My blood ran cold. You knew, I whispered. You knew and you didn't tell me. Mom called me a couple of weeks ago. He admitted, refusing to look at me. She said she was going to invite Sarah. I told her it was a bad idea, but she just went on about how Sarah has no one, and she's practically family, and it would be cruel. I didn't want to fight right before Christmas. I figured it would be fine. It's one day. Just be civil. Just be civil. The 4 words women everywhere hear when they're being asked to swallow disrespect for someone else's comfort. Be civil while a guest, a living symbol of my mother-in-law's disapproval, was invited into my new home. On a day that was supposed to be about my new family. A bad idea, I said, my voice rising. Mark, she invited your ex-girlfriend to our Christmas, in our house, without asking me. And you let her. You hid it from me, to keep the peace. Whose peace, Mark? Not mine. You just didn't want to deal with your mother. He had nothing to say. He just stood there, looking at me like I was the problem. I had never felt so alone. I was the director of a play, and everyone else had already gotten the script. I turned and walked out. This wasn't about snide comments anymore. This was a declaration of war. Brenda showed up on Christmas Eve, a tornado of fake cheer and Tupperware I didn't ask for. She acted as if nothing was wrong. I waited until the kids were asleep. I found her in the kitchen, humming while rearranging my spice rack. Brenda, we need to talk, I said. She turned, her face a perfect mask of innocence. About what, dear? About Sarah. I know you invited her behind my back. The mask dropped. Her eyes went hard. I didn't do it behind your back. I told Mark. It's his house, too. And honestly, I'm appalled at your attitude. The fact that you're so insecure you can't handle her presence for a few hours is your problem, not mine. It's Christmas. Get over it. My problem, my insecurity. She twisted it, masterfully, to make me the villain. Mark just hovered in the doorway, wringing his hands, a silent spectator. His silence was the only answer I needed. He was siding with her. Christmas morning was a blur of forced smiles and tension, so thick you could cut it with a knife. The kids, at least, were happy. Then, at 1 p.m., the doorbell rang. There was Sarah, in a chic white coat, holding a huge gift basket. She swept in with a breezy confidence that instantly made me feel like an unwelcome stranger in my own home. Brenda rushed over, hugging her like a long-lost daughter. Sarah, darling, you made it. Doesn't the house look lovely? Reminds me of how you decorated your old apartment. I just stood there, frozen, as the nightmare played out. Sarah was charming. She and Brenda huddled in a corner, whispering and laughing, throwing glances my way. I was being deliberately and skillfully excluded. Every minute was a new humiliation. The final straw came after dinner. I heard Brenda's syrupy voice from the living room. Mark, honey, why don't you show Sarah that photo album from the trip you two took to Italy? I walked to the doorway, just in time to see Mark, my husband, sitting on the couch next to his ex, flipping through pictures of their old life. Then Brenda delivered the final blow. Oh, you two were so sweet together. She sighed. Go on, give her a hug for old time's sake. And he did. It wasn't a passionate hug, but it was a hug. It was a complete surrender to his mother's fantasy world where I didn't exist. Watching him embrace the past his mother was so desperate to resurrect. Something inside me didn't just break. It shattered. It turned to ice and then to dust. I knew, with absolute certainty, that this could never be fixed. Brenda would never stop. And I just snapped. I turned without a word and walked back to the kitchen. I set the plates down with a clatter that silenced the entire living room. I could feel their eyes on my back. My hands were shaking, but this time, it wasn't from fear. It was pure rage. Mark followed me in. What's wrong? He asked. What's wrong? I spun around. I am being systematically humiliated in my own home. On Christmas Day. I will not be disrespected like this. Not anymore. I walked past him, back into the living room. All eyes were on me. Brenda had a smug, challenging look on her face. I want you to leave, I said, looking right at Sarah. Now. And you, I said, turning to Brenda, my voice like steel. You need to leave my house. Brenda actually laughed. You can't be serious. You are not kicking me out. If you won't leave, I'll make you, I said. I walked to the front door and threw it open. The cold December air rushed in. Go. She stood her ground, crossing her arms. This is my son's house. And it's my house, too. I shot back. And I want you out. She started screaming then, about how ungrateful and crazy I was. Mark was trying to play mediator, but we were long past that. Then, an idea, cold and clear, hit me. I stepped out onto the porch. Brenda, still yelling, followed me. "How dare you speak to me this way?" she shrieked. "You're right," I said. "We should discuss this privately." And as she took another step onto the porch, I sidestepped back inside, slammed the heavy oak door shut, and threw the deadbolt. The click echoed in the sudden silence. For a second, there was nothing. Then, the pounding started. Brenda was screaming, her voice muffled. "Open this door." "You psycho." Mark rushed to the door. "What did you do? Are you insane?" "Open the door," he yelled at me. Behind him, I saw Sarah, her face pale, grab her coat and run out the back. One problem down. But the main problem was still on my porch, screaming. The kids had started to cry. I looked at my husband's panicked, furious face, and I felt nothing. Just a profound, chilling emptiness. "No," I said. "She is not welcome in this house anymore. Not tonight. Not ever." Brenda raged for another 20 minutes before a neighbor must have threatened to call the police. The rest of the evening was a wasteland. Mark and I circled each other in the ruins of the day, two strangers in a house that no longer felt like a home. Later that night, we had the fight, the real one. All the things we hadn't said for years came pouring out. He admitted his mom had lied to him, saying Sarah was having a mental health crisis and needed closure, a lie he partly believed because it was easier than fighting his mom. I told him his weakness had destroyed my trust in him. The family group chat, predictably, exploded. I was a monster. I was unstable, but a few people sent private messages. Mark's cousin Chloe wrote, "Honestly, Brenda has been pulling stuff like this for years. Good for you." It was a small comfort, but it was something. So where are we now? There's no neat and tidy ending. My relationship with Brenda is over. I haven't seen or spoken to her since. Mark sees her on his own, in neutral places. She is not welcome in my home. That is my boundary. It is non-negotiable. My marriage almost ended. It took months of therapy and painful conversations to find our way back. He had to learn to put his wife and children before his mother's manipulations. He's still earning back my trust. I learned something important that Christmas. You cannot make someone respect you. You can only change how much access you give them to your life. Choosing to protect your own peace isn't selfish. It's survival. Locking my mother-in-law out of my house was the most extreme thing I've ever done. But it was also the moment I finally took my power back. It was the moment I chose myself. And that's the story. It's messy. It's complicated. And I'm sure some of you think I went too far. So I have to ask, what would you have done? Have you ever dealt with a nightmare mother-in-law? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one, and hearing your stories makes me feel a little less alone. And if you want to follow this journey of rebuilding, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. Thanks for listening.